Hello designers, and welcome back to another Affinity Designer tutorial. Today I will show you how to set up an isometric grid and start creating isometric designs in a beginner-friendly and slower pace. I will sprinkle tips and tricks throughout to help speed up your creative process, including the use of symbols and assets. If you want to skip sections, I will include timestamps. Let's jump right in. Okay, starting from the very beginning, I've opened up Affinity Designer. And if you're going to follow along with me, you can from this point forward. Okay, so we're going to want a new document. This panel appears when I open Affinity Designer. Some people disable it down here, but I like to see it because it shows the new brushes and things that are coming out. So let's make a new document. So you can either press this one here. I never do that for some reason. I press File and New. So we're going to want to choose one of these presets now. So if you go along at the top, it says Web here, and click on that, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to choose this one, FHD 1080p. This one is 1920 by 1080 pixels, and it's 16 by 9 ratio. So you can either click on that once and then press Create, or you can double tap it. Now you can see all the settings here that are part of this preset. So it's in RGB, 72 DPI, etc. But we're just going to double tap this. So we have our document and our canvas. I'm just going to get rid of this grid by pressing Command and single quotation mark. You can see down here any shortcuts I use. So starting with a clean slate, first of all, let's see what our default grid is and how we do that. So head on up here and it says View. Click on that, go down and it says Show Grid, and there's that shortcut I told you about earlier. Click on that, and as you can see, it's a square grid here. And what we want to do is we want to work with an isometric grid. But before we do any of that, let's just check that our snapping is enabled. So up here you can see snapping. It's a little magnet symbol. We're going to click on the drop down menu, and here are some of the settings that I have checked. So I've checked snap to grid, snap to baseline grid, snap to object bounding boxes, snap to key shape points, and snap to object geometry. These are the ones I've clicked on. Maybe we'll click on more later, maybe not. Okay, that's done. So why is this snapping important? Well, because of this. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So here's our grid, and you can see these red and green lines. It's snapping to the grid, and this is going to be useful for when we design our isometric design. Okay, let me just switch to the move tool. So I'll press V, and you can see down here I've pressed V, and it's gone to this move tool, which is the arrow basically. Now let's open an isometric grid. There's a couple of ways of doing this, but just follow along with me and we'll get there. So head on up to View and head down to Studio. And you see here it says Isometric. Click on that. Now you can see this panel has appeared. It says, in order to use the isometric panel, a compatible grid must be configured. Click the button to modify the current grid. Okay, let's do that. Okay, another panel has appeared and it says Grid and Snapping Axis. And it's also got this panel here, which is isometric, which is the one we wanted. Now I did say there was another way of getting to this point, and I'll quickly run through that. You go up to View, and then you keep going down, and you can see Grid and Axis Manager. If you clicked on that, Grid and Axis Manager, just this panel would appear, not this isometric one. In order to get this up here, once you're in here, you'd have to go to Advanced and then Isometric, and then this button here, Create Plane Set. You check that, and then that would appear. But we're not going to use that today. So far, what we have done, we've gone to View, Studio, and we've gone to Isometric, and we've clicked on that. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail with all of these settings in this video because we're going to be concentrating on the isometric grid. Today, we're going to be choosing a preset which Affinity has provided. And it's here, isometric. We're just going to click on that. But before I do that, I'll just quickly run through a few of these just so you can get a basic idea of what all of this is about. So if we press automatic, that was our original grid, if you remember that. That's an automatic grid. Basic, that's a basic grid you can see, and it's got spacing 64 pixels. That's the size of each one of these little squares, and divisions is 1. What does that mean? Well, let's just change it to 2. I'll press return, and you can see it's created even more mini squares within there. And this helps with snapping when creating designs with more detail. Okay, advanced. Now, under advanced, there's a lot more going on. Grid type, standard, there's an isometric one, and you've got a whole host of other options going on here. And you've also got cube. This one looks a little bit more intense, but it's really not. It relates to your document in the background. If I just start playing around with some of these, you can see it changes what you see on your document. And what these are, they relate to this: elevation, orientation, and roll. And now this can be useful if the preset isometric grid that we're going to use isn't exactly what you're looking for. So let me just change this real quick. So it's straight. We've kind of got I'll press 0 on that. So we've kind of got an isometric grid in the background. So if I was just to press and hold and click up and down on this elevation, you can see we can kind of get a different perspective ready for designing. But anyway, forget about all of that. Let's go on up to presets, and we're going to choose this one, 64 by 32 pixel isometric with planes. Okay, so if I just move this across a little bit, you can see we have these dark gray lines and then these slightly lighter gray lines. And this will help when we're snapping and drawing whatever we're going to draw later. If these are a bit too faint for you, if you're using different colors and stuff, you can change the grid color and the opacity down here. And I'll just play around with that so you can see, look, you can see it a little bit more prominent there, which might help. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay, so we've chosen our preset and we're just going to press close. Okay, before we draw anything, before we create anything, I just want to show you this isometric panel a little bit more in detail. Now there's 2 ways, it's really cool. There's 2 ways you can design using this panel. It's edit in plane, which is basically editing on the grid, which I'll show you, and fit to plane. I'm going to show you how both of those work right now. So to start off, I will head on over and I will grab a rectangle tool. And I'm just going to click and drag out a square. I'll keep my finger on shift so it's a perfect square. And I'll make it slightly darker here over in the colors tab. Just gonna hit V for the move tool. So we've got our square. I'm going to create a couple more of these. So I'm just going to press Command J, which is going to duplicate it. You can see here in the layers here. I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to press Command J again, and it knows what I did because I just told it to before. That's power duplicate. I'll click on the first one, and I'll head on over to this isometric panel, and I will press this fit to plane. You can see now it's slightly looking a bit more isometric. And the reason it did that when I pressed fit to plane is because this one was selected. Top, current plane. See, if I switch these, you can see the grid slightly changes. This will make more sense in a minute. I'll click on this square here, and I'll click on side, and I'll press fit to plane now. And that's changed again. Okay, so the first one we did was the top. So this one here, let's put that at the top. Second one we did was the side, and you can see the blue side here. So it's kind of like this side of the cube. And the last one, I will select it, I'll press front and fit to plane. And you can see a cube is being formed here. Okay, let's change the color of this slightly. I'm going to, now that they're put together, I'm just going to press that shortcut, command and quotation marks, so we can see what we're doing a little bit more. I'm going to change the color of these. It's good to think about, say, maybe where the lighting's coming from in scenarios where you're working with like these kind of 3D isometric objects. So I'm just going to make a little sun. I'm going to hit the ellipse tool here, which is M for a shortcut. And I'm just going to draw out a little sun and make it yellow here. There we go, or orange. Okay, so if the sun's up here, it's going to be lightest on top. So I'm going to make that slightly lighter here. So I'm in the colors tab and I'm playing around with the colors. All right, there we go. It's the lightest. Here, which is the furthest away, would be the darkest. So I'll leave it like that. And this one would pretty much be like kind of maybe a little bit more like that. So you can see we've created a cube through using the fit to plane. That's one way of doing it. So you can kind of create a kind of flat pack and then put it together like that. But let's get rid of all of that. Okay, let's play with edit in plane. So I'll click on that. Let's get our grid back. Command small quotation mark, not small, single quotation mark. I will press top. Now you can either use the pen tool with this or rectangle tool. It's up to you. You can use any of these, but we're going to create a cube. So I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. I will click and drag outwards, and I'll keep my finger on shift to so it stays a perfect square. There we go. You can see I'm now creating within the plane of the isometric grid. All right, I want to create the side now. So I will click on this one. You can see the shape we've just created is still highlighted. So I'm just going to press escape so that that's not selected anymore. And I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. Okay, keep my finger on shift. It's a perfect square again. There we go, that's the side. I'll make that dark. Okay, so I want to make this next side. So I'll press front and click and drag. Keep my finger on shift to keep it a perfect square. There we go, I'll change the color on that slightly. Make the top lighter. So there's two ways of creating the cube using this isometric panel. Edit in plane and fit to plane. Now you see there's other options underneath here. I'll just draw something else out so that makes more sense to you. So I'll click and drag out a heart. Let's make it red. So we've done edit in plane, fit to plane, flip horizontal. You're not really going to see much difference if I press that. But if we press flip vertical, it flips it vertical like within the plane. And then you've got rotate anti-clockwise and the other way. That can be useful. Okay, let's stylize this cube into something else so that I can show you a couple more tricks you can use to save time. So let's make this into a chair. So first of all, I'm going to press Command and the shortcut to get our grid back, and I'll press the move tool and top. For now, I'm going to get rid of the sun. And in the layers panel, I'm just going to grab all of my layers, highlight them, and I'm just going to drag it down a little bit. Okay, so let's make a chair. So to start off with, I'm going to press the front here so we can see all the mini little grids for this side as we work on this side, and I'm going to make it three of these thick. This will be the base of our chair. I'll select the other side, and I'll just drag it up and do the same for that one. One more. Okay, we've now got the base of our chair, and I like to keep things tidy. So over here in the layers panel, I'll select all of them. So select the first, keep your finger on shift, select the last one, And then we'll press Command G, which is group, Command G. So we now have our base. The next thing I want to do is create the legs. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool again, which is M, and just going to press escape so this is not selected anymore. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw out the first leg. That'll be okay. All right, I'm going to change the color so that it matches the color of this for this side. So I'll head on over to the dripper tool or the dropper tool, and I'll click that and select that. So I'll let go, and then you see this has changed. I'll click on this, and now that has changed to that color. Okay, and we'll need to make it look 3D. We'll need the other side. So I will select the move tool again, and instead of drawing out, I'll press Command J, and that will duplicate it. As you can see here, it's duplicated now. It's in the layers panel just there, and I will flip it around. So heading on up here, flip horizontal. Click on that, and there we go. That's snapped in place. And I've got to make that dark as well, so I'll make it the same color as this. So I'll use that dripper tool again. So click and drag on that. I'll select the darker one and click on that little circle, and there it is. I'm going to select both of these sides of the leg and group them together. Again, select that, hold down Shift, select the other one, Command G, that's grouped. I'm going to call it leg, so keep everything tidy, and I'm going to call this one base. And you can see it's going over part of the chair here. So I'll just click and drag that down on the layers panel. It looks good now. Okay, we're going to want 2 more of these legs. So I'm going to press Command J, which is going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to offer it up here. Okay. There we go, that's snapped into place. And I'll do 1 more of those. Command J. And there it is, snapped into place, really easy. So the next thing we want is a back to our chair. I think I'll just make this a kind of blocky chair. Otherwise we'll be here for a very long time. Okay, so I selected that. And I'll just zoom in a little bit. And I'll go 3 in. And oops, I've forgotten something. I'll press Command Z to go back. I want to choose this one, this front face here. Okay, so I'll do it from here, and I'll drag out. I'll just drag it out to there for now, and I'll make sure that so this one is on the top on the layers panel, so it's not hiding behind anything. And I will also change the color before I do anything else. So do the same again, grab that dripper tool, and that's changed to a good color now. And I'll press the V tool, this is our move tool again. And I'll just drag some of these nodes. There we go. Drag that. Let's see how high we want it. Maybe about here, that looks good. And we just need the sides here now, just the top and the side there. This side would be this, so I'm going to select this because we're editing in plane. And again, grab the rectangle tool. And I'm going to go up and just drag that. There we go. I'll change that to the same color as this. Now it can be slightly easier if you create a swatch for this. So you can kind of create a swatch so you always got the same colors, so it's all coordinated. But for this, I'm just going to be doing it by eye. So I'm going to be dragging that dripper tool quite a bit. Okay, last one is the top here. So I will press top. Got our rectangle tool still. And it's 1 more across. I'll just drag that down. And this will have to be the same color as this. And there we go. So I'll just group that together, press Command G to group it, and I'll just put back here. And I'll group them all together. Command, choose the last one here, Command G to group, and I'll just call it chair. So we have our chair. We've turned a cube into a chair. It looks cool. It's on the isometric grid. So the trick I wanted to show you, say if you were creating a scene and you needed more than one chair, you might want to do something like this. So you could either select it and press Command C, Command V, which is copy and paste. Very old school way of doing it. I'll just get rid of that. That's one way. You can press Command J, which is going to duplicate it, and you can move it, and then press Command J again, and you just keep pressing that, and there's just tons of them. I'll get rid of all of those. Or you can use something called symbols. So we have our chair selected. Head on up to View, Studio, and Symbols. You click on it here. Now, I'm not going to click on it because I already have it in my workspace. So over here, you can say it says Symbols. So I've selected that. Okay, so I have my chair selected and I have symbols. I will press Create now. And you can see chair is now within this symbols. So let's say I'm creating a room. I want another chair in there. I'd be like, okay, I'll just grab that chair and I'll just drag it out and put it there. And say if, oh no, I want all of my chairs, I want them all to be a slightly different color on this section here. So you could just go in, I'll go to the base in the layers panel, got my base now. Now I'm going to change the color. So I'm going to go up to here to fill. And I'm going to change it to, let's say, red. And as you can see, now that it's a symbol, it will change across the board. So each symbol that you drag out of here and place, it will change the colors or anything else you do to it. And that is because it's synced. So you've got them synced. So I created one and then I made a symbol out of it. And then I dragged the symbol out here, and I can drag as many as I want. It's because they are synced. If I just say wanted to change one of these, like, oh, I want one of them to be yellow, then I'd click off of sync, and I will go in to the base, choose that base there, and then I would make it, well, let's say yellow. And you see it hasn't changed with the rest of them. So that's one really cool way of doing it when you're working on a document. And let me just go back on all of those. So I'll just press Command Z, go back to what I was when I had one chair, when life was simpler. Okay, so we got our one chair again. So symbols, that's one really cool way of doing it. Another way is to build like an assets library. If you were creating a whole scene, again, like I was saying before, and you had chairs, maybe plant pots and windows and other things like that, that you might want to use in a future project, then you would use assets. So I'm going to show you how to do that first. So you go to View, Studio, and then you go Assets. Okay, so this thing has opened up here. Now you can see I have a few assets here. Here's one I made earlier. So we're going to want to make one of these. If I click on these three lines here, I can press Create New Category. I'll press that, and it's just called Assets 2 for some reason. So I can rename that. I can name it, let's call it Room. There we go. So now with the chair, I would just drag it across, and now it's there in my assets. It's a chair, and if I make anything else, I can create maybe that plant pot or an extra door or something that I might use over and over again. I can keep dragging those over there, and then when I get to my next project, I can just simply, I'm just designing something and I'm like, oh, I need a chair in there. I just drag that out and they will always be there, and it's really cool. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful. Why not check out part 2, where you will learn how to create an isometric bedroom scene and ice lolly. Click on the link in the description or the suggested video on the right.